We're still working on this house we're fixing up over along the Oregon coast, and it looks like a nice sunny day, so I think we'll go up to Garibaldi and go fishing. We drive through the campsite at Barview County Park to get down to the jetty. We've already got our permit. We bought a year's parking permit. They charge $10 a day if you don't have that. And so we'll move on down to the jetty and see what we can catch. It looks a little foggy at sea today. We reached the parking lot at the jetty. I grab my fish pole and tackle box and head down to find that perfect spot to try fishing today. The really neat part about fishing here is you never really know what you're going to catch. It might be something very small or something very large that maybe you won't be able to get up over the rocks at the jetty, but we're going to give it a try and see what happens. The salmon fishing season is on at full swing now, and out through the fog we can get the outline of a few boats trolling around beyond us. I don't think any of them are going out to sea today. I think it's too rough to get out over the bar. I very carefully pick my way down the jetty. It's pretty good going because they've got some fine rock on top the jetty for a ways, and then it's just great huge boulders after this. You can fish on either side of the jetty at this point, but it looks like the surf's a little too high on the ocean side, so we're going to try to fish in the protected side of the jetty. With the fog and the wind, there are only two other brave souls out here fishing, so we're going to go down and bait up and give it a try. I get down in the rocks and start trying to put my hooks on. I get in a little sheltered place where the wind isn't shaking me so much I can't get them on, and get my hooks on and some bait. I've got some frozen sand shrimp, which are getting a little soft now, but they seem to work anyway. And then I've got some little plastic worms that I'm anxious to give a try. I'll be using two hooks with a small sinker down below, and that way you don't have a whole lot of lead and it'll drift around pretty good out there, and maybe it'll attract some fish. Those sand shrimp being frozen don't seem to be sticking on the hook very good, but they'll work anyway. And then I've got that plastic worm that I can try. We see a few more people down along the jetty trying to fish by now. And you can crawl down where you get a little protection from these great huge boulders and cast out in your own little spot here. And there's not a whole lot of people, so you don't have to worry about tangling lines so much. We check with some other fishermen, and their luck is all the same. Nobody's catching anything, but that ocean is getting pretty violent, and occasionally it's splashing completely over the jetty. But since we're here, we're going to give it a try and see if there might be one out there willing to bite. That darn soft bait that I was trying to use just isn't staying on. So I just pull my hook in and put some of those artificial worms, they're a kelp worm, that look really realistic and feel realistic. And so I'm going to give one of them a try again and see what happens. At least they don't come off quite as easy. But when a fish bites, they will tear them off. More boats are trolling past us out in the channel, and I can't see anybody catching any fish there, but we can only see them for a little bit here due to the fog. And that wind is kind of chilly today, but it looks like they're dressed for it, and they're out there trolling around in the fog trying to get a bite from a salmon. I have by now crawled down in between some boulders where I've got a little protection. That ocean's slopping over from the ocean side, coming clear over the jetty occasionally, and down here it won't hit me quite as bad. And then I start getting bites. My pole jiggles and bounces as a fish bites it several times, but I can't seem to hook him, not yet anyway. But I'll just keep trying, and probably pretty soon I'll be able to get him where I can catch him. It's a fairly comfortable spot where I'm sitting here, and I can cast out there pretty good. The only thing when one bites, I have some trouble bringing him up over the rocks. In this case, I guess you just hope that if you get one on, that he's a small one so you can get him in. I would get closer down to the ocean and it'd be a little easier, but as rough as it is today, I think it might be foolish to get down there closer to that water. You could get swept off here, but if a wave comes in, you just hang on. And the ocean's roaring so loud today that you can't hardly hear anyone talking right next to you even. But I'm still getting bites, so it's looking like I might get one here pretty soon. It was a very difficult situation trying to fish off these rocks with the wind blowing so hard and the ocean was so rough that it was really tough to try to get a bite out of one. But they were biting. Almost every cast I get a bite, but I couldn't seem to hook them. So I'm just going to hang in there and keep trying. If we're going to catch one, it should be pretty soon, because if we don't catch them pretty soon, the tide will change, and then that'll change the fish's habits. It may be they'll bite better, or maybe they won't bite at all, but we'll find out pretty quick. Marge has already had to go to the car and get her another coat on. She was getting chilled to the bone with that cold old wind whipping over that jetty and throwing spray up over her. It was a cold, cold fishing trip. But I'm still getting bites, so I'm going to hang in there and see if I can get one hooked. The ocean appears to be getting more violent second after second. It almost feels like it's shaking the very jetty that we're sitting on, and it's cracking and popping and roaring like crazy. It's almost to the point where I don't feel like that I will be safe sitting out here much longer, but it's still okay, so I'll keep trying. We sure want to catch some fish. The fog's lifted just a little bit by now, but by now the darned wind is starting to come up, and that is a chilly old cold wind, and it's blowing spray over us most of the time. Those fish better get with it and start biting before the tide changes. The weather was really nice over where we're staying, just on the other side of Cape Lookout, but it we weren't right on the beach either, and that makes a big difference. At least I've got a good place to sit. And uh-oh, I think I've got one on. Yippee, I think I got one. So I'm going to see if I can get him in up over the rocks. Sometimes they'll run and dive under a rock, and then you just have to hang in there and be patient and wait for them to swim out, and then you can get them that way once in a while. But it looks like mine's going to come in. And the neat part about this fishing, you never know how big or what kind of fish you're going to catch. They run all sizes out here, but we're trying to target some smaller species so we can pull them in easier and they'll make darn good eating. And here he comes. I finally got my first fish. And it looks to be a nice little kelp greenling. And so we'll take him home and have him for dinner. And then there he is, a nice little kelp greenling. Sometimes some people call them sea trout and other things, but whatever you call them, they're darn good eating. Sort of a green meat on them in most cases. I'll hold him up and get some pictures of him. They're really built and adapted to where they are. They need a lot of fins so they can swim in and out fast around all those rocks and feed off the rocks.
Was different than her 5
By
life.
now, the fog has cleared enough. We can see a few of the boats still out there stubbornly trying to get a salmon to bite. But I bait up and throw out again, get another bite, and then I'll throw out again and hopefully catch one. Well, I couldn't ask for a better throne to set on while I'm fishing, and I'm getting bites all the time. But everything it's so rough out and the wind's blowing so much that I can't seem to hook them. But I'll just keep trying and maybe pretty soon. The deafening roar of the ocean is in the background, and some of the fog is lifted a little bit. So we're getting a little bit of sunshine, but with that, the wind is building. That probably signals that it's change of tide. So I better hurry and get one if I'm going to. Otherwise, I might not after the tide changes. I'm still having a little problem with them. When I hook them, they'll get under the rocks and you can't get them out. But if you keep just a little bit of pressure on them or sometimes slack it a little bit, then they'll swim out sometimes. And when you pull them in, you don't want to mess around. Just get them in a hurry before they get under the rocks. And I've got one on right now, and he's fighting for his life in the briny waters of Tillamook Bar. I try to move them up to the surface of the water where they won't get on those rocks, and here he comes. I got him up on the surface and brought him up in the foam and then just lifted him right straight out. And he looks to be a little bigger one than the one before, but either way, it looks like unless he figures out a way to get away from me right now, we've got enough for a feed for Marge and I had to throw in again. What do you know? If another one didn't bite. So I'm going to try to pull him up, flip him up on the rocks. I like to get them up in the foam if I possibly can. Then there's no good solid water for them. Wow! And it looks like we've got another fish. So we're setting pretty good. But uh-oh, it wasn't the right kind. So I threw him back. The people are sure hanging in there on the salmon trolling out here. They're taking it very, very seriously, and maybe they're catching some. I haven't seen anybody catch any yet, though, but with the fog, I probably couldn't. We can just barely see the outline of the boats in the fog since it's so foggy and rough out there today. It must not be that pleasant.
That water is rough.
You getting any bites?
Not yet.
Yeah, you may have too much lead on.
Huh?
Something on it?
Yeah, it's hung up.
It's hung up, you think?
Another one bit, but swung under a rock again, and I can't seem to get him free. So if he breaks away, I think I'll just go ahead and pack our rods up, and we'll come back another day and catch him. And besides, we've got enough for a meal of nice fresh fish for Marge and I, and they're a lot better fresh than frozen. The tide has changed now, and it looks as if some of the salmon trollers are heading in, and the wind's starting to blow pretty nasty cold wind, but at least it's blown the fog over to the side a little bit, but there's still plenty of fog here. So it looks like just a real good time to gather up our stuff and head for home. Here's the 2 kelp greenling that we caught off the jetty, and we caught one more little fish there and threw him back because he was too small. So we're going to fillet these, and that's enough for the two of us to have a nice fish meal.
Yeah.
Now we're going to fillet these two and get them ready for cooking. I'll cut by the fins here and then come up, and there's a little bone here. I'll get under it. There. And then we want to make sure we get the head meat on it. Come up here and get it clear to the skull. Then we should have a pretty much bone-free fillet, which should be very good. And we've taken good care of these fish. We carry an ice chest with ice out when we're fishing so we could get them right in the ice, and that way they don't get soft, and then we bring them home and put them in the refrigerator till we get them to cool them off good before we start filleting them. And you just find that backbone and just kind of go down along it. And then you can just peek up in here and see where it is right up here. There. Oh. Oh.
Okay, here's the fillet.
There's a fillet, a real nice is fairly thick for a small fish, so there'll be plenty of meat for us there. And now I'll just slide my knife up along the skin and this fish will be ready to cook. There now is a very nice little fillet I'll lay here. And here's the fillet off the other side. I still have to take the skin off from it. Wow, look at the pretty dots on him. So I'll just lay it down on the board and slide my knife under it and slide that skin off. And here's the carcass, and we never wasted any meat either. Just run your knife along here and you can slide that skin right off. Now there's the skin, no meat left on it, and then here's the very nice little fillet.
There.
What's that you're putting in the pan?
Olive oil.
Okay.
Yep. And next thing I'm going to do is get an egg over here. I got my cornmeal already poured in my dish. So I'm just going to take this egg and I'm going to break it in this dish. And then I'm going to mix it. Beat it up a little bit. Okay, that's beat up enough. I'll just put that aside. And now I'm going to take my fish. What I'm going to do first is put my fish in my egg mixture. And you can season it if you want to, but I'm not because of the fact that we just are eating kind of salt-free. So I'll roll the fish and I'll roll it all, so let's put it in about all the same time. And I got like 4 fillets. I'm making a little bit of a mess, so I'll have to clean it up. And here's the last one. It came out about right. There, I got it. So that should do it. Now I'm going to wash my hands off real quick. Pull it down. My skillet's a little too hot, so I'm going to just turn it down to medium. I'll set this out of the way, and I'll get my fish. And my oil almost got too hot. I wasn't washing it like I should have, but it's just about ready to go. I'll turn my heat down a little bit, and then I'm going to put my fillets in it. It's going to be nice and hot.
Yes. Starting to sizzle.
I can put it back on the burner. And I'll just set this in the sink. And I'll get my And keep turning. I'll turn it up just a little bit.
And you don't want to cook them too long, is that
no,
right?
I don't want to cook them too long, but I'll turn the
In
heat
a
up.
quite hot skillet.
I'll turn the heat up.
And this is the kelp greenling that we caught off the North Jetty at Tillamook Bar.
They're coming right along. Make sure that they're about ready to turn. I turned the heat back up just a little bit because I had turned it down because it was too hot. But I think it's about ready to turn.
Turn it up and let's look.
That's about right. Brown.
Yeah, that looks good.
They're brown. There we go. Now, I'll get this other one. I'll just set this down a little bit. And they're coming right along. They're going to be nice and crisp. I don't have it on, but maybe on when you go from 1 to high, I have it on about 7, so it's not too hot. Just that one over just a little bit to see how he's coming. I think they're just about ready to take off. Okay, I'm going to take this off the burner. Shut this off. And I'll bring the potatoes over. And I'll set the fish right here. And then I got some little red potatoes that I boiled. Okay. Now if I can find a place to put them, here I'll just move this and set it right here. And I'll get a spoon, a serving spoon for the potatoes. And I had one over here for the corn. Right here. There's one for the corn. There's one for the corn. And here's, so,
Oh,
we're ready to eat.
okay.
I'll sit right here. And we got some sparkling water we're drinking. With a little ice in it. Whoops, I about spilled the water again. Okay.
Our table isn't too good. This
No, well, this is just temporary.
is temporary while we're working on the house, and we're hoping to be done with it next week, maybe. We've already checked with the property management.
Oh, it might take a couple more weeks. We might be into October 1st, but
Yeah.
hopefully.
But
it'll
we're
be
getting
okay.
along on it now.
Well, I think I'll try some of this fish right here. And I'll put just a little bit of lemon juice on it. Whoops, that should do it. And I'll have some corn. And then I have some potatoes and some salad. You gonna pass the salad, please? And I'm gonna
Got my salad. Now we'll get a piece of fish. Looks like we had plenty out of those 2 small fish.
And here's some
But
corn.
they were real meaty.
Put on your plate. You know, here's your couple spoonful of corn. And the corn is salt-free, so you don't have to worry about salt. And there's some butter here. It's nice and crisp. Oh, it's real good.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's not too salty either. I didn't salt it.
Well, we just had a difficult time catching them because we had really bad weather, but just the same, we caught enough for our meal. Test a piece of this fish first. That is very good fish.